Have you ever been deep in the wilderness, miles from the nearest road, and felt that chilling sensation that you are not alone? That primal fear that something is watching you from the shadows, just beyond the reach of your campfire light. It's a feeling many hikers, campers, and explorers know all too well. Today, we're diving into 3 true horror encounters from people who found themselves far from civilization, facing terrors they couldn't explain. These stories come from experienced outdoorsmen and women who thought they knew the wild, only to discover that some things defy all logic. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to question what really lurks in the deep, dark woods. Our first story comes from a man named Mark, an avid solo backpacker who decided to tackle a remote, seldom used trail in the Appalachian Mountains. For the first 2 days, his trip was perfect. The solitude, the stunning views, the physical challenge, it was everything he loved about being in nature. On the 3rd night, things took a terrifying turn. He had set up his camp in a small clearing, miles from anyone. As dusk settled, he was enjoying the quiet when he heard a sound. It wasn't an animal he recognized. It was a soft, high-pitched giggle, like that of a small child. He froze, straining his ears. It came again closer this time, from the dense thicket to his left. Mark's heart began to pound. A child, out here, impossible. It cut it out, asking if anyone was there, if they needed help. The only response was another giggle, this time seemingly right behind his tent. He grabbed his heavy-duty flashlight and his largest knife, his hands trembling. He unzipped his tent, just enough to peer out. The woods were pitch black. He shone his light in the direction of the sound, its powerful beam cutting through the darkness. But there was nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, just silent, ancient trees. The giggling stopped. An eerie silence fell over the forest, heavier and more menacing than the sound itself. For the rest of the night, Mark sat awake, clutching his knife, listening to every snap of a twig, convinced something was circling his camp just out of sight. He never heard the giggle again, but he felt a presence, an unsettling awareness of being watched by something unseen. He packed up at first light, not even stopping for breakfast, and hiked the 10 miles back to his car without a single break. He says, "You'll never forget the feeling of pure, helpless terror, and the sound of that child's laughter echoing in the vast, empty wilderness." Next, we journeyed to the vast, isolated forests of northern Canada with a group of 4 friends on a week-long canoe trip. Alex, Ben, Chloe, and Dana were all experienced paddlers, looking for an adventure far from the tourist trails. 4 days. They paddled through pristine lakes and rivers, seeing no one but the occasional moose or bear. On their 5th night, they made camp on a sandy spit of land jutting into a large, fog-shrouded lake. As they sat around the fire, sharing stories, they noticed something odd. Across the lake, a single point of light appeared. It was too bright and steady to be a flashlight, and it seemed to hover just above the water's surface. They watched it, puzzled. It wasn't a boat. There was no engine sound. It wasn't a star. It was too low and too bright. After about 10 minutes, the light began to move. It glided silently and smoothly across the surface of the lake, directly towards their camp. There was no sound, no wake in the water, just this silent, glowing orb, getting closer and closer. Panic started to set in. Ben grabbed a pair of binoculars. His face went pale. He stammered that it wasn't just a light. Inside the sphere of light, he could make out a dark, elongated shape. Something vaguely humanoid but impossibly tall and thin. As it got within 100 yards of their shore, it stopped. The friends were paralyzed with fear. The light was so bright now it hurt to look at, casting long, dancing shadows behind them. And then, a sound started. A low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in their chests, making their teeth ache. It grew louder and louder until it was almost unbearable. They huddled together behind their overturned canoes, terrified, just as they thought they couldn't take it anymore. The light shot straight up into the sky at an impossible speed and vanished. The humming stopped instantly, plunging them back into silence and darkness. They didn't sleep that night. They stayed by the fire, talking in hushed, fearful whispers, trying to make sense of what they'd seen. The next morning, they paddled back the way they came, cutting their trip short. They never spoke of it to anyone but each other, unable to explain the silent, hovering light and the terrifying figure within it. Our final account takes us to the desolate, windswept plains of the Australian outback. A geologist named Sarah was on a solo expedition, collecting rock samples in a region so remote it was hundreds of miles from the nearest town. She was used to the isolation. She thrived on it. Her routine was simple: drive a rugged 4x4 as far as she could, then hike out to various sites, camping under the stars. One evening, after a long day of hiking, she was returning to her campsite as the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery colors. That's when she saw it. In the distance, silhouetted against the vibrant sunset, was a figure. It was humanoid, but its proportions were all wrong. Its arms were far too long, nearly touching the ground, and it moved with a strange, jerky, disjointed gait. It wasn't an animal, and it certainly didn't look like any person she'd ever seen. She froze, watching from behind a rocky outcrop. The figure seemed to be wandering aimlessly, occasionally stopping to stoop down and examine the ground before lurching forward again. Sarah's scientific mind tried to rationalize it. A trick of the light, heat haze. But the image was too clear, too distinct. A deep, instinctual fear took hold. This thing did not belong here. She quietly retreated, taking a long detour to get back to her vehicle, her eyes constantly scanning the horizon. She got to her truck, locked the doors, and decided to drive a few miles away to make camp for the night. She found a new spot, but sleep wouldn't come. Every shadow seemed to take on that grotesque shape. Every gust of wind sounded like a shuffling footstep. Just before dawn, she was jolted awake by a sound, a slow, rhythmic tapping on the roof of her truck. Tap, tap, tap. Her blood ran cold. She was in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There was nothing for miles but rock and sand. She laid there, rigid, not daring to breathe. The tapping continued for what felt like an eternity, slow and deliberate. Then she heard a dry, scraping sound, as if something with long fingernails was being dragged down the side of her vehicle. She squeezed her eyes shut, praying for it to go away. After several agonizing minutes, the sound stopped. Sarah stayed inside her truck until the sun was high in the sky, its heat baking the metal. When she finally mustered the courage to get out, she found long, deep scratch marks running from the roof down the driver's side door. There were no footprints, no tracks of any kind in the soft sand around her truck. Nothing. She threw her gear in the back and drove without stopping until she reached the asphalt of a main road, leaving the mystery of the long-armed figure and the terrifying scratches in the dust of the outback. These encounters, from the misty Appalachians to the desolate outback, remind us that the world is still full of mysteries. When we venture far from the safety of civilization, we enter a realm where the rules we know might not apply, where unexplained sounds and unnerving sights can turn a peaceful adventure into a fight for survival. What do you think these people saw? A prank? An undiscovered creature? Or something else entirely? Let us know your theories in the comments below. If you have your own chilling story from the wilderness, we'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed these true horror stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown. Stay safe out there.